the heart, and the beloved being God. And it is only through that pure submission. And we believe one more thing that, and I'll end at this, that submission has been going on from day one. That Adam, peace be upon him, was a Muslim. That Islam, because the essence of the heart's relationship with God is what? A submission. And therefore every prophet who came was exactly the same message. And to get people to do the same thing, which is worship the Creator, all of them told their people, worship you, submit to your Creator. And therefore the essence again of Islam is two things. One, Tawheed, the oneness of God, both on the surface level and the deep structural level. And second is also that direct relationship, no intermediaries, with the Creator, and that every prophet came with that clear message.
So, as I said, I'm sharing on behalf of the Network of Spiritual Progressives, and one of the things that I really love about the Network of Spiritual Progressives is because it calls me to be who I want to be while doing what I feel called to do. And the NSP, the Network of Spiritual Progressives, has kind of like a fight song, but it's all about peace, of course. But the chorus goes like this: love and kindness, radical amazement, peace and generosity. And those are the core values: love and kindness, radical amazement at the beauty, at the wonder of the universe, peace and generosity. And so these are the values that we find as core values in faith traditions across the world, and also core values of people who don't profess a faith tradition, but feel that there is something really missing from the way that that the mainstream or materialist culture is presenting meaning, through stuff, or the benefits of life in a way that really does not lift up these core spiritual values. So that's one of the things that's distinct, is the focus on the values, which are common ground that we share. One of the work of the NSP is about building a new bottom line to replace the old bottom line of money and profit. It's about making love and kindness and radical amazement and generosity and peace the bottom line everywhere. So we look at our schools, looking at our economy, looking at the way we are treating the environment. How can that be critiqued when we look at it through the really core values of love and kindness and generosity? And I'll say a little bit more about that as we go on. But this focus on building a new bottom line is a really core one. And then also thinking beyond what is quote-unquote realistic. We have a lot of people saying, well, that's not realistic. A political solution when you fight for candidates or stand up for candidates, well, they're not electable or whatever it is. And so many things that would really speak to the core of what we want, the kind of world we really want to live in. And not the kind of world we're living in, but one where people treat each other with love and kindness and generosity, that to propose solutions like that are not realistic within our current paradigm. And so part of what the NSP does is push people to think beyond realism. Realism will not get us where we really want to go. And so one of the also core pieces of the Network of Spiritual Progressives is spiritual covenant with America. And we have stood up for many different things that are part of progressive causes that many spiritual people, and also people who don't identify as spiritual but identify as progressive, has stood up for. Things like health care for everyone is something that is part of a caring society, that we care for each other's health, that we don't want to see our neighbors or friends go bankrupt because they get an illness, and things like that. That healthcare education, that we would like to, I know I personally would be happy to spend, they said, all of the layoffs and cuts that need to get made to our education system in California could be avoided if every taxpayer in California paid $30 more a year. I personally would much rather pay $30 more and have every child have a good education instead of our teachers getting cut and our schools getting cut. So that's the kind of thing, but then we have no new taxes. So it's really about how does love and kindness critique the way that we're doing things. And that the spiritual covenant with America is about making a commitment to stand up for what really comes out of love and kindness when we look at all of these aspects of our civic life together. So that's what we're about.
I think that the most obvious difference about Buddhism, at least on this panel, is that Buddhism is a non-theistic religion, and that the Buddha didn't become a realized being through a connection with God, but through his own introspection and self-inquiry. And I think I'd like to say a little bit more about that because, especially in a culture where most people do identify with a God in terms of their religious practice, that it's not so much to be thought of as there absolutely is no God, but that the way Buddha connected with truth was through knowing himself completely. And so I often think of, in terms of Buddhism, what we could call God as Buddhists, and it's nature, or truth, or the nature of existence, and the way ultimate reality shows itself. So I think that to give that context is useful in a big panel. And another unique thing about Buddhism is that Buddhists believe that this is not our only life, that we actually have many rebirths, hundreds of thousands, countless rebirths, and that our attempt in those rebirths is to cultivate character, a lot of the qualities that you were talking about, and ultimately transcend this realm of unsatisfactoriness, so that you do connect with something deeper. Again, that could be translated into what most people call God.
Okay, so I'm Murphy. The religion that I believe in is called Sikhism, and I think out of most of the people on this panel, I might be judging, but it may be like that I'm one of the ones that you don't know a lot about, because there's not a lot out there yet in history textbooks and things like that. I noticed with the schools, I was actually really surprised that at Alhambra, Mr. Shane, I call him Mr. Shane because he was Mr. Shane when I was there 12 years ago, he told me that there's 5, maybe 3 pages in the recent history textbook, so I was excited about that. And I'm going to stand up because one of the things that is absolutely unique about my religion is me. Like the way that I am dressed, and the fact that we have an identity, a physical identity that separates us from everyone else. And the clothing is just, I was at the Girls Audit earlier today, so I was debating whether to come in jeans, and because I was telling the email, and I was like, should I just come in jeans and a shirt because that's what I normally wear? But I was like, no, because this is what really, really makes us stand out. And when you see us, usually, if it's in the media or anywhere, even on a Sunday at Safeway, sometimes on Alhambra, you'll see me wearing this because I'll come straight from the Girls Audit and I'll go shopping. And I noticed that people always ask me, like, well, I usually see men wearing turbans, and why are you wearing a turban, and what's the turban about? And those are questions that I normally get. And so the turban is one thing that is very symbolic in our religion. Sometimes people ask me, is it because you're supposed to stay covered and you're not allowed to show your hair to men, or things like that? And it's the exact opposite. Keeping your head covered, keeping your hair when you're a baptized Sikh is very, very unique to our religion. So when we get baptized, which is a whole other story, we keep our hair uncut. So my hair actually goes down to my knees, and not many people know that, especially my students, because they're always wondering, Miss Molly, how long is your hair? And I always say the reason why we have the turban is because we want to keep this physical identity. It's a part of it, so when in a crowd of hundreds, or in a crowd of even 50, you'll be able to know which ones are Sikhs. It's very obvious. And one of the things that I like to always say is, is in the United States is there's a misconception about you know, whether who are Sikhs, who are Muslims, and in Islam. I'm not going to speak on that because I don't feel like I'm educated enough about it. But I know for a fact that one way that you can differentiate between Sikhs and Muslims for sure is that Sikhs will have a silver bracelet, and that's something else that's really unique to our religion. It's kind of another part of the identity factor. So if you're ever confused, even my students will notice, oh, she has a silver bracelet, or he has a silver, he's a Sikh, or she's a Sikh. So that's one way of saying it. The other thing that I'm saying wrong is I'm pronouncing it Sikh when it's really pronounced Sikh. So in Sikhism, people call it Sikhism, and I've gotten used to saying Sikhism because people wonder, that's what's been in my head. And it's actually Sikhism. And in Sikhism is a belief in one God, so that there's one divine being, and that there are many different paths to that God, and that all paths are true. It's just to stay true to your path. Stay true to your path, whatever that may be. And that was said by our first guru, who was Guru Nanak Dev Ji. There were 10 gurus, or 10 prophets, or 10 living beings that were sent, that we believe, by the Creator, by God. And each one of those gurus passed on a different message, and basic messages of what everybody has said of love, truth, kindness, you know, all of the same things. That's what I say. There's so many similarities between all the religions up here. And then after the 10th guru decided that we needed to have a physical identity. So he was the one who created the idea of Sikhs getting baptized, keeping the haircut, keeping the turban, keeping 5 symbols actually. That when you get baptized, you have these 5 symbols that always remind you of some of the core tenets in the faith. So now, we're like, well, what do we do now? Now after the 10th guru decided that there's not going to be another living guru because this can keep going on and on and on, and took scriptures from different religions and scriptures from the previous gurus and different Kabirs, famous poets from the time, and compiled them all into what we call our 11th guru, which is the Guru Granth Sahib. In some textbooks it's called the Adi Granth, you might have seen it as that. The Guru Granth Sahib is 1,430 pages, but we don't even call them pages because we treat it like it is a living guru, a living teacher. So we actually call each page like an ang, which translates to like almost like a body part. That's what it literally translates to. So in the morning when Sikhs do prayer, they bring the guru downstairs, take a reading from the guru, and whatever that scripture is for the day, that's kind of your hukam or your lesson for the day. And that's something that I go back to whenever anything happens. We go to it for weddings, we go to it for birth when we name our children. Those are some unique things. You will find the Guru Granth Sahib in any Sikh Gurdwara or Sikh temple. The one that I go to is in Alsabrante up on the hill. When you go past Berkeley or Highway 80, you can see it from the hill. So the other nice thing about that's really unique is that Sikhs always have langar, which is a 24-hour kind of service for free food. And so if you're ever at a temple, and if you even want to just have lunch or you want to go inside and see, there will always be food there, and that's something that I think is unique to our religion. And I could be wrong, so if I am, forgive me. That's one thing that I absolutely love, and I noticed that it brings a lot of people in our community to the Gurdwara because they not only get a free meal, and in times that the economy is bad as it is, we're actually getting a lot more people. And the only things that they ask is that you keep your head covered and respect, no smoking, no drinking. Those are things that are important in our religion as well. So that's just a couple of things, and I'll touch back on the other one too.
Thank you. Any comments or questions at this point, or should we? No, it's being answered. So good. Okay.
I just wanted to clarify, did you say at your temple they say to keep your head covered or uncovered?
So to keep your head covered, so covered. It's a way of respecting the hair, so keeping your hair covered.
Can Reverend Laura tell us the 20,000 sects of Christianity?
Yes. No.
Show me what you afterwards.
Google can.
What are the high holy days for the Jews? And for example, the recent one, are they? There's certain ones throughout the year. Anyway, okay, high holy days. What are they?